Thank you very much, Steve. And we start here this evening. Youth unemployment is a national crisis that demands urgent, innovative and coordinated solutions. The Presidential Youth Employment Intervention is a direct response to the challenge that too many young people are not transitioning from learning to earning. Of the 1.2 million young people entering the labor market each year, more than 65% remain outside of employment, education and training. Of course, we're talking about this due to the QLFS, the Quarterly Labor Force Survey, which came out today for Q3, showing that South Africa's unemployment rate remains at 32.9%. But I'm not alone. Rudi is a man of many talents in the area of the labor market and trade, having worked with COSATU as trade policy coordinator among many other hats, and he is currently the head of President Cyril Ramaphosa's Project Management Office, which is responsible for this particular intervention. Rudi, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thanks, Korani, for inviting me.
Rudi, I have to start here in terms of the President Ramaphosa. He roped you in quite a big way to play a huge role in implementing the plans that are there to make sure that we put a dent on unemployment. But we've heard some grandiose promises from the President about the target for job creation, and even his predecessor, President Jacob Zuma, same thing as well. At one point we heard 5 million jobs would be created in a space of 5 years. That never actually took place. But before we get into the nuts and bolts of this particular intervention, what is your response when it comes to the data that was released today? How do you view it?
Well, yes, before we get into that, other comments that you've made, which is quite true. I mean, I think that many administrations have made many promises. We still have a national development plan that talks about particular sets of targets by creating an unemployment rate of 6% by 2030. We are 8 years away from, 7 years away from that. So we're on a long road. We're not denting and making the significant changes that is required. The data today, again, I think consistently shows that with the kinds of interventions that we create, the measures that you've referred to, the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, some of the structural reform programs that we've initiated 2 years ago, also as a consequence of the relaxation of the COVID regulations. So the labor market is also recovering as a result of lockdowns. So it does take a bit of time for it to be able to do that. But what we're seeing consistently in the quarterly labor force data is a decline in unemployment rate and an increase and an uptick in the number of people that are unemployed. So no surprise, and I think it's amazing that we're able to see. I think even if one looks at the decline in the unemployment rate by 1%, the big figure to look at is the change in the total number of people employed from the same period this year to last year, which is 1.5 million. So we've been able to get an additional 1.5 million people into employment, between last year, third quarter, and this year, third quarter. And you can see those particular sectors. Those are sectors that are important for us. Those are the growth sectors. Trade, for example, retail, mining, some jobs in mining, lots in manufacturing. More importantly, also in some of the work that we've been doing as the public sector, in community and social services, right? Those are where the public employment programs that we're quite excited about have been started as the PMO, particularly the intervention around the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention coming through. So the data is a good indication that we're moving in the right direction, but a caveat, of course, and I will agree with anybody that we still got a long way to go, Kolani. The data on youth unemployment is still horrific. We need to do a lot more interventions. We need to ensure that, more importantly, that we create the kinds of opportunities for the private sector to invest, because that's where the job creation is going to happen. We also need to, I think this point is also quite important, that we need to think about earning income in very differently to just earning wages, right? It's about also creating self-employment, small-scale startups, informal economic activity. These are the kind of opportunities and earning opportunities that we also look at. So it's not just simply about getting someone into a job and earning a salary and wages, but it's also someone who has an entrepreneurial spirit that wants to be self-employed, that is producing T-shirts on the side, that is, manufacturing some product or doing some degree of services. These are also going to be important. That's the only way we're going to be able to get the kind of dent in the unemployment figures that we're looking for. So a long way to go still, but I think it's all a step in the right direction.
Rudi, the President has roped you in primarily in the implementation phase of this intervention, bringing the private sector together with government and social partners to make sure that we really, in the fight against unemployment, there's some work that's been done, because you will agree with me that the problems and challenges that we have are historical, and they point to a lack of implementation in terms of the grand ideas that are good on paper. What challenges has this particular intervention, since you have been part of it, has it encountered in terms of making sure that it is implemented correctly?
I mean, the one problem, first, if I may just say, I mean, we designed and finalized the design of this intervention way back in 2019, and we were in the process of implementing it during 2020 when COVID struck. And of course, resources had to be reallocated. I think what was important was that some of the resources that was allocated, you would recall the announcement of the 100 billion rand employment intervention. So we had a bit of reprieve where we could see some of the interventions coming through in those particular sets of interventions. So I think that was quite important. I mean, there's huge amounts of challenges, in particular breaking down the silo approach of government and making sure that we all work together. I think what it does do is that when you're in the presidency, it does help us to be able to coordinate different sets of different departments, entities, the NYDA, the Department of Employment and Labor, the Department of Higher Education, the Department of Women, Youth, People with Disabilities, Science and Innovation, many other different departments, DTIC, for example. Bringing together these departments into a cohesive program is very important. Partnering, taking it one step further, partnering with organizations out there and businesses out there is another step. And I think this is something that we've been able to achieve, that we've been able to coalesce and organize around critical interventions. One, in establishing a national pathway management network that allows young people to join a network and access opportunities on that network through a platform. During last year, the President launched what is called SAYouth.mobi. And SAYouth.mobi is for only under 36, so if you and I who are over 36 wish to log on, you won't do that. We automatically exclude it through our ID number, which is the access opportunity. And that has been significant because that is the backbone of the intervention, because it allows young people to join, to look for opportunities, and for the pathway manager to direct them into what opportunities there are, either in public services, public employment programs, formal employment programs, self-employed opportunities, national youth service, for example. So this is going to be quite critical, and this has grown from strength to strength. Our partnership, for example, with Arambe has seen, for example, a few 100,000, at the top end of 100,000, of just below 1 million, which was initially part of the Pathway Management Network. Today we have close on to 3.1 million active young people who have joined that network. It's the largest national network of young people who, for example, we are assisting in them, in preparing them for interviews, second chance matric, for them to access different opportunities. We, as an example, utilize the basic education school program, the massive public employment program that was also launched during this time, during COVID, as a response to COVID. 300,000 young people participating in 22,000 schools across the country. This is the largest single public employment program. 95% of those people are young people. 65% of them are women. We use the Pathway Management Network to allow young people to access those opportunities. without being discriminated against, you know,
Yes.
and to apply for those particular sets of jobs at all 22,000 schools.
So 3 million young work seekers between the ages of 15 and 35 have engaged with this intervention. But it doesn't mean, it hasn't meant that 3 million young people are now earning an income or have found jobs or are now entrepreneurial. What has it meant that 3 million people, young people, have engaged with this initiative?
So what we have been able to do is get about 800 to 850,000 young people into earning opportunities. So that's important. So we're not just signing people onto a network and hoping for the best, right? What we have done and what this network does, it does a lot of supply-side interventions, right? So the supply-side interventions, particularly young people who don't quite know how to conduct themselves in interview or not know, for example, to prepare their CVs. Also reducing the costs for job seeking, right? So you have one central point where you're able to load your CV, where you're able to load a resume, your work experience, and the cost of job search is very expensive, as you know, because many young people don't live close to where jobs are, right? And so this is the importance of that. We're reducing job search. But by matching that to demand, by matching that to employers or to opportunities out there has been phenomenal. Because again, you don't have thousands and thousands of employers looking out and sending out adverts and having thousands of young people queuing up at their places of work, all trying to apply for a job. And that's the most important thing, being able to match young people to the opportunities that is there. What we need to do, and this is the great focus that we're having right now, is signing up partnerships with different sectors, where the growth sectors are. So we're having a strong partnership with the digital and tech sectors, for example. You know, we're having a strong partnership with the agricultural guys and the agricultural unions. We're having strong partnerships with the automotive guys, with the renewable guys. All these growth sectors where we think there are opportunities for young people to get employment or earning opportunity is what we require. So we need thousands more employers to join up and to put their opportunities on this platform so that millions of young people are able to apply for that. What it does do is coordinate that. So we bring in together supply and demand into one place, reducing the cost of employment search, having a single point of entry, and having for you to build a profile as a young person. Because as we know, many young people move from one place to another. You are able to use that wherever you go to.
Rudi Dix is the head of the Project Management Office in the Office of the Presidency, President Ramaphosa's office. Of course, talking about the Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, targeting that particular pathways of making sure that there are opportunities, there's workplace experience, and you support rural and township economies in those pathways to make sure that they employ more young people. Rudi, thank you very much for your time this evening.